Just days after a massive $2 trillion IPO, SpaceX exercised an option that caught everyone off guard. They bought Anisphere, the maker of an AI coding agent named Cursor, for $60 billion in an all-stock deal. On paper, the pairing makes almost no sense. You have the world's dominant heavy aerospace and infrastructure company suddenly absorbing a 2-year-old software application that writes code. But Cursor is not a charity case. Founded by 4 MIT graduates, the company hit $4 billion in annualized revenue by early June. They built a highly profitable business independently, turning away early acquisition offers from Microsoft and OpenAI. This AI stack starts with physical power and compute, moves up to the core AI model, and finishes with a user-facing application. Competitors rent their compute, but with Cursor, SpaceX now controls every layer under one roof. They hold the power plants, the data centers, the research lab, and the profitable application. But owning every piece of the machinery is not the same as getting them to work together. Artificial intelligence requires an intense physical reality. Beneath the chat interfaces and code generators, AI is just steel, cooling, and electricity, and nobody constructs raw industrial infrastructure faster than SpaceX. That physical dominance is concentrated here, in Memphis, home to the Colossus supercomputer complex. The speed of the Colossus buildout broke industry records. The team took the first 100,000 GPU cluster from a completely bare factory floor to active running training in exactly 122 days. For context, a data center of that magnitude usually requires a multi-year timeline just to clear permits. In response, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang explicitly called the rapid buildout superhuman, and they didn't stop. They expanded the site to 555,000 NVIDIA GPUs, pulling roughly 2 gigawatts of local gas-generated power. At the very bottom layers of the stack, compute and power, SpaceX is absolutely dominant, having solved the physical choke points that paralyze their rivals. But an engine only matters if the software can actually run on it. When we move one step up the stack to the model layer, xAI's Grok, that perfectly engineered physical machine hit a wall. An internal xAI memo shows the flagship supercomputer was operating at an embarrassingly low 11% utilization rate. For context, standard efficient AI training requires at least a 35 to 45% utilization threshold just to justify the immense hardware costs. The problem was the sheer complexity of the cluster silicon. Colossus 1 is built with a mix of 3 different generations of NVIDIA chips, the NVIDIA H100, the NVIDIA H200, and the new GB200. But the Grok training cloud couldn't pass data between these different architectures fast enough to stay in sync. This technical friction made the hardware effectively too complex, forcing xAI to move its training pipeline to a second data center. That left SpaceX with a massive idle supercomputer, so they made a highly lucrative pivot. They started renting hardware to their direct competitors. Google signed a cloud service agreement worth about $920 million a month. Anthropic signed an even larger deal, paying $1.25 billion every month. It's a remarkable irony. Claude, the premier AI model of the West, now runs substantially on Elon Musk's physical servers. Failing to utilize their own stack accidentally turned SpaceX into the NeoCloud, a massive AI landlord generating $26 billion annually by leasing compute to their rivals. SpaceX spent $60 billion to buy the one layer they couldn't build from scratch. The Cursor acquisition functions as a highly calculated patch. This deal moves an elite model training team directly into the SpaceX orbit. By wiring them into the Colossus supercomputers, SpaceX aims to finally force the intelligence layer to match the scale of its compute. Cursor also delivers a massive, dedicated audience of developers. SpaceX already had consumer distribution through X, but they now have a direct pipeline to the engineers who actually build software. SpaceX had built the biggest hammer in the world, and they desperately needed a nail. Cursor gives their infrastructure a target. Look at the circular financial ecosystem this creates. We have a small ring of tech giants, flush with recent IPO capital, renting supercomputers from each other, which in turn inflates the valuations of their respective companies. The lingering question is whether absorbing Cursor actually closes the foundation model gap, or if SpaceX simply settles into its role as a very wealthy hardware landlord that happens to ship an excellent coding tool. Billions of dollars can clear land and build gigawatt data centers in a matter of weeks. You can buy software platforms and massive developer audiences. But genuine foundational intelligence is the one layer of the stack you have to build yourself.